name is Gonzalo. I'm currently based in Afghanistan in WFP's country office. My position is the head of CBT program there. So I would like to explain how is the day-to-day first. Making the simile, it's like being in a hurricane, right? Especially this type of emergencies. You approach it, you get sucked into it, you're shaken a little bit, and then after a few weeks, you are left out with more and whiter hair. And what that means in terms of your day is that it's very difficult to lift your head and think for a moment. Now, most of the time, I'm looking into three main things. The first one is ensuring that my core activity, which is providing cash assistance to beneficiaries in the country, is delivered, and it happens as is expected. And that requires a lot of engagement with other program colleagues, other units colleagues, field offices. We have 6 field offices, financial service providers, managed contracts, funding management, following of expiring funds. It's a lot of work. That's the first pillar. The second pillar, especially when you are scaling so fast, and for your reference, we scale up 30 times between October and March of this year. When you scale up so fast, many things are not done as is expected from the organization. So my second main activity is to make sure that we walk forward to implement those other elements that are required by the organization, particularly the assurance elements that are related to cash transfers. And the third element is, of course, strategy, donor engagement, team management, HR, etc. I'll stop there. Over.
Thank you so much, Gonzalo. That was great. Let's move up to the next. Gerd, can you tell us a bit of yourself? Gerd, you're muted. You're muted, please.
Maybe your headphones aren't connected.
Okay, in the meantime, can we go to Rohini while Greg fixes set?
Can you all hear me?
Rohini, please.
Yes.
Over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rohini Swaminathan. I'm head of GIS, the Geospatial Support Unit within WFP Emergencies. My background is predominantly in geospatial mapping using satellite data or regular mapping, especially for disasters, both preparedness and response. To do the full circle of about myself, I come from India and I have worked with a bunch of UN agencies so far, and not so surprisingly, WFP is one of the best out there, especially on the humanitarian aspects on how much we adopt technology. So I think that's where being in this crowd of having to talk about innovation champions, it becomes so important on how advanced WFP already is. And I'm looking forward to working with most of you to see how best we can even push it further.
Thank you so much, Rohini. Do we have Greg there again, or he's off?
I think
guess
he
he's
just left the
offline.
meeting and he will join us again. So if you want to continue, and I'll let you know when. Ah, he's back. Gerd is back.
Greg is back. Greg, if you're there, can you please?
Let me try this again. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
you
good.
are clear. Go ahead.
Good. So great to see so many familiar faces again. So my name is Gerd. I'm working since March as head of in-kind operation in Ukraine. As they say, in-kind and CBT are just modalities. So probably I would repeat exactly as what Gonzalo is experienced on a day-to-day basis. I would add that my day-to-day basis is also divided between upper floors and basement, because unfortunately there are these situations where we have bombing alarms. Nowadays it's intensified, unfortunately, in Kiev and in other regions of Ukraine. And so yeah, most of our times is spent in basement, working there. At the beginning, it was a bit weird, but you know, staying so close to one another is also an advantage. You start heating one another, and it gets cozy. And you, guess what? You don't need meetings because you have everybody there. So you just communicate on a continuous basis with others, and it's fun. We even celebrated one birthday there, the head of program, 42nd birthday. One element that I would also add, though, in my role as heading a team of 11 people, it's impressive to see how young people coming with a fresh mind within WFP can catch up with probably and to my experience, with everything. And so it's impressive to see that capacity strengthening working for you, and continuously being able to delegate increasingly more important tasks to young, and not necessarily young, but young to the organization, so to say, people. And that's beautiful to see. So capacity strengthening, either actively or passively or on the day job, is also what I would say one of my, and I see it as one of my major responsibilities and tasks. So yeah.
Okay, Greg, thank you so much for that. It is important to know what's going on in your respective regions. So let's go ahead now. Our topic today is the front line, the space for innovation in emergencies. So, Gonzalo, WFE emergencies are busy and continuously competing priorities. Where are the opportunity spaces for innovation during WFP emergencies from your perspective?
Thank
Can
you.
you give us?
Yeah. So I don't think I'm saying something revolutionary if I'm saying there are opportunities to innovate essentially everywhere, right? Now, some considerations in the emergency context. Innovation normally or often is born out of necessity. So always observe and think and discuss with your colleagues where are those opportunities to start introducing innovations, right? I will also add to that, you need to be on top of what's going on in your specific sector, in your specific area of work. So you don't come up with ideas that maybe is reinventing the wheel, right? So you need to know what is happening in your world. Then, especially for emergencies, it's important. Where do you want to prioritize? Do you want to innovate looking inwards in the organization, or are you trying to have more impact for the people that we assist? And it's a hard choice because it's not like the one neglects the other one. Both are extremely important, right? I think here is where context matters a lot. If you are in the initial stages of an emergency, as I would say, we are still getting out of that initial stage in Afghanistan. For me, the priority is more looking outside, looking what we need to do to improve the lives and how we deliver assistance to the beneficiaries. So then how I suggest you play with the context in looking into where you want to first prioritize your impact. The next consideration also, I'm pretty sure all of the people in this call are aware, is innovation. It demands resources and demands a lot of time and attention. Now, in an emergency, especially in a large one, you might have money, but you will have very scarce amount of time. You will have a very tiny team, and you will have a very limited time span to dedicate your attention to something in specific. So if you have gone through the previous two steps, you have observed, you have identified where you need, you have identified according to what exists in the space, how can you use existing tools to innovate what you're doing, you have prioritized where you want to have the impact, then your next key steps is that you identify how can you add resources, people, team, etc., to implement those innovations in your emergency operation. If you just do it with what you have, I assure you, you can barely cope with your workload. So trying to innovate is going to be like swimming upwards, right? So yeah, that would be my thoughts. Over.
Thank you so much, Gonzalo. That was good. We're gonna have questions coming. Please look at them at the end of the discussions. We're gonna have it answered by you or whoever is in being addressed to. So for the next one, let's go again to Gerd. What advice do you have for innovation champions who would like to come to you with a proposal or an idea or solution that could impact your operation? Great. If you can please tell us something in 3 minutes.
Sure. Well, I'll take advantage of also spending some time at the Innovation Accelerator. It was an amazing time when I personally grew and learned a lot. I was part of the Scale Up team with an amazing team working to scale to corporate solutions some of those best pilots that we had run in previous years. And it was, I think, the first lessons learned in me personally, but I think the team would share this, is that scaling up these solutions is damn hard. It requires from political will and up to resources that Gonzalo mentioned, which doesn't necessarily mean only money, but also time, dedicated stuff, a combination of resources that need to come at the right time, at the right moment. And it should obviously address a real problem. And that's what I think I took as the major lesson learned from the time at the accelerator: human-centered design. Try to avoid assuming that you have found a solution for people out there. Don't stay behind your screen, but go out there and observe. I think Gonzalo used the same word. Observe and learn what actually our beneficiaries, our people that we serve, experience on a day-to-day basis, and what it is and how it is that we could further make our assistance even more effective. And then draw an idea, even if you have some resources at your end, try to test at least the idea. I think the best level where you could propose ideas at the Innovation Accelerator would be some level of confidence that your minimum viable solution is at those levels that you have tried it feasible, and then obviously ask for help with the Innovation Accelerator, and there are calls for proposals that are opened twice a year, I believe, if not more. So yes, human-centered design, your beneficiary and the problems that they are having at the center of everything, and then start building from there together with your beneficiaries or your clients, if these are not beneficiaries, but you're building a solution for your own team or for another department. But have in mind that because building solutions, and we have seen this, I have experienced it myself, I have done the error of assuming that I knew what should be the solution and discovering that that was not really the time. So human-centered design, think of your beneficiary, your client, start building from there. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Gerd. That's comprehensive, and I hope we all pick it up. And question and answer time. Get ready for it. Okay, so let's go to Rohini. You are there in HQ, in charge of something big, and we know that you have a lot of country offices. Can you tell us about how your work with other colleagues in emergency um, are there to ensure that the work your unit does is efficient? Rohini, can you tell us a bit about
Sounds
that?
good. Thanks, Salman. Whenever I look at or think about innovation, I think in two different ways. One is the fancy kind of innovation, right? You got the drones, you got the machine learning, artificial intelligence, you got all these big keywords, which are also important. It's not to be overlooked, but it's going to be experimental. Like Gerd said, it's not easy, something that you can apply for one region and you can scale up for the rest of the world. That's going to be very, very difficult. And we invest quite a bit on the fancy side of innovation. But what I'm most interested in the boring innovation, which doesn't really pop up as something that you can do a comms piece on, but that's where I think the most benefit that happens with when we work with country offices. What do I mean by the boring innovation? Most of the times you just see databases and rows and names, and you can call Rome as Roma and Roma, and it will not match when you want to map them. Something as simple as that, but then it stops the entire process and you cannot map your scope data anymore, or your comma data is not on a map anymore. And that boring innovation is where we are focusing so much on these days, working with our country offices, working with tech and dots, and trying to see how we can bring WFP data sets to 21st century where they are all geospatially, enabled and mapped. And what we do working in the emergencies, we go through the cycle. We start with preparedness. So that's where the most amount of boring innovation happens, where we want to map every single data set that we possibly could map. And that starts with something basic as admin boundaries, where WFP country offices and warehouses are, where the roads are, airports, ports, you name it. Anything that we would need to operate in a country globally, we would maintain it here. And we also do subnational risk analysis, right? Because we deal with complex emergencies where multiple hazards can happen at the same time. And sometimes when we have our early warning qualitatively saying, oh, in Ghana, I'm really worried about it. We want to know how many people are vulnerable subnationally for each hazard in Ghana, right? So these are the preparedness things that we work with the country office quite a bit on. And now we have a platform called Adam. I don't know if everyone here has subscribed for Adam. If not, please do. I'm going to put the link here. It's the advanced disaster analysis and mapping system that we have. And Adam currently runs for earthquakes, tropical storms, and floods. And we are working to expand Adam to other disasters as well eventually. And what happens with Adam is that if a cyclone is coming, Adam will automatically pick the line of where it is, how many people are within it, and we are potentially expanding also to identify disaggregated data sets on what all other things that Adam the users could benefit from. And it goes all the way to response. So once something happens, like Adam issues a flood alert, potentially talking about the precipitation, how bad the forecast could be. And once the flood event happens, then eventually Adam will start taking satellite data automatically and look at responses. That's where the fancy kind of innovation comes in a little bit. And now we are investing together with innovation quite a bit on how to further automate most of these things. As cyclone hits, we want to automatically see how many buildings are affected so that we can calculate how many people are affected in this region. So when we work together with the country office, we work on this cycle. So we start from the preparedness, the early warning, the response. And in the response phase is where we try to have more field data collection, more web mapping and online dashboarding tools so that the country office colleagues could easily access all this complex information that we put together. So in one place, we will be able to see where WFP warehouse, where the flood event happened, where the vulnerable people are, and so on. But I think compared to most other UN agencies, we have advanced in geospatial use quite a bit. We still have a long way to go for sure, absolutely. But it's very, very great to see the appetite that WFP has in getting technology being used, operationalizing technology. So that's where I think I get very excited when I see events like this, where we have even innovation champions and focal points in every country office, and we see that in practice. So that's quite exciting. Just to quickly answer that question, Rose, yes, Adam is
Okay,
public
hold on.
and available for
Okay.
everybody.
Rohini, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, sorry, we're running out of time, so I'll just put the questions quickly and then we can move to the next session before we have the interaction. For question number one, this is for Gonzalo. This question is from Angela Wine. Can you talk specifically about how gender-based challenge at the local level affects CEO staffing and in the daily work and how the CEO manages?
Yeah,
Gonzalo?
sure. Very quickly, a couple of comments to give some color of the situation in Afghanistan. One, once the Taliban took over, the female workers in the central bank, for example, they were sent home. And recently, the female workers that are still receiving a little bit of the salary were demanded by the Taliban to now nominate a male in the family to replace them at work. Second, you have all heard the news about the schoolgirls. We have colleagues in the country office, obviously many of them that have girls, daughters that were about to finish high school, they couldn't, and now they are also starting to be issues to enter the university. Now, it's a very difficult question to answer on how it's managed at the country offices level, and I think me as a male, I shouldn't be talking about this at all. But just a couple of things to mention. The first thing I want to say is I'm very proud to be part of the team there. We have a female country director. Our DCD of operations is female. My supervisor, the head of program, is a woman. And you know, this woman, they have to go and talk with the authorities, give interviews to the local news media, and it's really admirable to see within that context the organization and the country office pushes for that. I think the second and third thing that I want to say, the second is we are very mindful as a supervisor and especially management of the team's composition, especially in the national staff. And it's something that we all look into how to improve the situation of the national staff. The UN in general in Afghanistan has a waiver to allow female to go to the office, which is great. But that's just the UN, right? The other thing is that I want to say is as expats, I think we have a very important role to play beyond the team composition, and it's the empowerment of the colleagues, all of them, right? In a society that really looks different between genders, I think we definitely have a role to play to empower everybody as it should be. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gonzalo. Sorry about timing issue, but let's go to the next question. This one is for Gerd. Gerd, the question is from Alessandra. She says, is it challenging to innovate during the first phase of emergency?
If it is essential, is that the question? I mean, it's essential to innovate at every time of an emergency, I would say. Maybe at the very beginning.
The question is it challenging to innovate during the first phase of emergency?
I would say yes. At the first stage of an emergency, you would have, as we had in Ukraine, and that was an operation that, and it depends probably also a bit from the context, but in our context, we didn't have an office in Ukraine. We had an operation from 2014 to 2019. We closed the offices there. And now in 2022, we were asked again by the Ukrainian government to reopen the offices. And so most of our efforts went into, first of all, finding a space, like an office. We were staying in hotels at the very beginning, and then we find an office. But then, of course, the whole government, local authorities relationship that you need to establish, partnerships with the whole NGO community, get to know where you are, and start to deliver immediately. There might be spaces of innovation there. In fact, we got the innovation prize this year for our self-registration exercise, which was basically a way of giving the opportunity to beneficiaries to register into government platforms that then triggered WFP response, especially on cash components. And so, yes, there is the level of challenge to innovate in the very first stages of an emergency is definitely higher than when it comes and gets more stabilized, if you will, in the next months to come. Yeah, definitely.